So, it's been a little over a month since the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack launched, and everyone loves it!
Shockingly, a lot of these Nintendo 64 games have been downgraded.
Not a little bit extra. It's more than double.
It already has a lot of issues that have people talking. A lot of people are upset.
Yeah, controversial is the word of the day. This pack launched at a bad time, was way too expensive, and did nothing to assuage concerns that Nintendo was simply manipulating fan nostalgia for the sake of turning a profit. Plus, the online itself still isn't great. But the question we must ask is, was the expansion pack any good? Were the inclusions on release of this pack actually worth giving a fuck at all? Let alone $50 of a fuck? Well, let's take a look at what the pack includes currently. Animal Crossing New Horizons, aka the only game Nintendo released in 2020 if you ignore all the other ones. It's definitely been seen as lacking in content ever since release, and while I don't really agree, the continual addition of content has definitely been more than welcome. Happy Home Paradise is the first major content update to act as paid DLC, releasing alongside the game's 2.0 update, if you don't take into account Nintendo releasing the latter 1.5 days early. With the announcement of Happy Home Paradise came the announcement that it would be included for free with Nintendo Online's expansion pack, if by free you mean part of a $50 to $80 package. It was the only part of the announcement lineup before launch that didn't release October 25th, instead launching on November 5th. To me, the inclusion of Happy Home Paradise sort of indicates there will probably be other quote-unquote free DLC included in the future, but we'll have to wait and see about that. As for the DLC itself, oh, I love this. Happy Home Paradise is directly modeled after Animal Crossing Happy Home Designer, a spin-off of the series released on 3DS. Some of the ideas in that game ended up in New Leaf's Welcome Amiibo update, and even more were included in New Horizons from launch, but this is probably the best way to merge the two branches. Happy Home Paradise is basically an entirely brand new game, contained within New Horizons. Not only does it have an assload's worth of content, but a lot of that content also interacts with the main game. It's seriously incredible. The 2.0 update is fun and very meaty, but in terms of the amount of new stuff you can do each day, it's basically just, here's a couple new tasks to do once a day, you can chill in Brewster's Cafe for some nice rewards, and you have a hub so you don't constantly have to hunt Leaf with a rifle. Happy Home Paradise though, this is a seriously meaty addition. And if you already have New Horizons, which considering it's sold over twice as many copies as the Wii U sold period, you probably do, I full-heartedly recommend this DLC. Luckily, you can buy it separately from the expansion pack, so if nothing else about the pack looks worthwhile to you, and I wouldn't blame you if it doesn't, you can just spend $25 on this one bit of DLC. Okay, so this is a weird inclusion, right? Like pretty much everyone else, I was surprised and pleased by Nintendo including this alongside the N64 titles. It was nice seeing them branch out and include other consoles, especially since the Virtual Console at its best has never been just Nintendo consoles. The thing is, unlike the Nintendo published games, pretty much all of the Genesis library has ways to play them officially on modern hardware. Hell, the big ol' Genesis Classics collection is available on Switch, usually for only $30. Now, granted, some of the titles included with Genesis Online aren't in that collection, like Echo the Dolphin, Strider, hell, even Contra and Castlevania are available when the NES and SNES libraries don't have them, even though Konami has their own collections available for both series that are also available on the Switch and include the Genesis games. Look, I'm not saying there isn't some value to having both options. Hell, some would argue this is better for game preservation, since it means these titles aren't locked behind a specific subscription service like with a certain other console we'll get into in a bit, but it does make the expansion pack as a whole feel less special, and a lot less unique. As for the games themselves, yeah, it's alright. Kind of a sparse lineup, only 14 games, and some of the missing titles are pretty notable. So we've got Sonic 2 and Mean Bean Machine, but no other Sonic games? What about Sonic 1 and 3? Sure, the former is available with Sega Ages, but so is Sonic 2. And why just Mean Bean Machine? Why not Sonic Spinball, or hell, even 3D Blast? A Phantasy Star 4, Shinobi 3, Streets of Rage 2, a lot of entries in the middle or near the end, but not the start of the series? I know they'll probably be added later, and it must have been expensive as hell for Nintendo to get the titles they do have at the moment, but it is kind of weird. As for the emulation quality, it's fine. I haven't noticed any major problems that I can definitely say are emulator issues, and I haven't seen anything online either. There is some weird collision in, say, Sonic 2, but considering I never played the original Genesis version of Sonic 2, maybe that's just true to the original. The controls work well enough, and it's nice to have the same options as with the NES and SNES Online. Overall, not the worst package available, just kind of an odd choice. Oh boy. The N64 is a classic console, but Nintendo haven't been doing a lot to keep the memory of it alive in recent years. No N64 Mini, very few remakes or ports in recent times, and the N64 titles on Virtual Console for Wii U were overshadowed by the GBA and DS titles for the service. On modern hardware, we've been waiting for a way to play most of these amazing beloved titles. This was the main selling point for the expansion pack, the thing that you couldn't get anywhere else. So, where do we start with this shit show? Only 9 titles at launch. Keep in mind, NES and SNES Online both had 20 at their respective launches, and even Genesis, a third-party console with all third-party games, had 14. Meanwhile, one of the most beloved consoles Nintendo's made, even if only by fans, and it only gets 9 games. Hell, Japan and Hong Kong didn't get Dr. Mario 64, so they only got 8! At least with Genesis and Online, Japan got the original Puyo Puyo to replace Mean Bean Machine. I can't see anything they got for N64 Online, at least as of now. Sure, Dr. Mario 64 was originally only released in North America, but Sin and Punishment was only released in Japan and we still got that. As a selection we got, sure, Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time are obvious choices, and I'm sure Sin and Punishment was fun for the novelty, but Mario Tennis, Mario Kart 64 as a launch title? Hell, even Yoshi's Story. All of these have better versions available for Switch. What the fuck is Winback? Oh, you know, the game that made every reaction channel say, wait, what is this knockoff Resident Evil game? Oh, sure, just leave games like the original Paper Mario or Kirby 64 and freaking F-Zero to be brought over later, but we gotta make sure Europe can finally play N64's Dr. Fucking Mario. Yeah, thinking about it, why did any of us get Dr. Mario 64? And the control mapping, my god! Okay, so you assign the C buttons to the right stick. Okay, fine. They basically did the exact same thing. But oh no, the N64 didn't have an X or Y button. Okay, so let's put the A and B buttons on A and B, and then use the other two for 2 of the C buttons. What? Why not have X mirror B like on NES Online? Then it would actually be closer to how the actual buttons were laid out. And why have X, the top button of the 4, be the C button for down? Why is ZL the only Z trigger, while ZR is for the cursor and turning the face buttons into the C buttons? Why are there so many fucking C buttons? Why is the suspend menu on the minus button, when literally every other Switch Online emulator uses both triggers at once? Why can't we just remap the controls, since this controller is so different from the standard one and was meant to be held in different ways? Was the idea just to force people to buy the fancy new N64 controller by making the button mapping on Switch as stupid as fucking possible? And my god, this emulation just doesn't look good! All the 3D models are automatically up-res to look like they're in HD, but anything stripe-based is still pixelated in the original resolution! Even in Mario 64, the game this emulator was seemingly built around, Mario's model and the UI look like from 2 different consoles! The trees are more obviously just 2D sprites than they ever have been, and the other games aren't excluded from this either. Ocarina of Time, the very first shot of Link, I thought my memory had gone weird, because I never remembered Link sticking out this much from the backgrounds, but no, because he's been made to look sharp and crisp, and none of the backgrounds for his room have been updated, it makes it look like he's been poorly photoshopped into the image. Like, would you make the models this sharp and polished and all but HD, then do absolutely nothing else? It makes the sprite and textures look so much shittier! My god, the games look worse than the SNES and NES games on the same service! And that's not even mentioning the high number of visual and audio bugs players have reported, or how the emulator can't handle things like fog or water properly, because it turns out they're pretty much using the exact same N64 emulator as 3D All-Stars, used for Mario 64, except A, that was exclusively built around Mario 64, so trying to use it for other games is going to run into problems that didn't exist for that game, and B, at least there, they bothered to try and up-res everything, text, sprites, even the frickin' UI elements. Sure, it looks uncanny compared to the original game, but at least it all fits together and looks consistent, and at least it isn't the best the games on Online are! Look, I was really looking forward to the expansion pack. I was one of the few people who thought the price could be justified, and I still think the package as a whole can be amazing. But the more I look at it, the more I have to admit, this part at least, it's just not good. I was so excited to finally have an official way to play these old N64 games. Hell, I specifically avoided pirating certain games just in case they ever announced this kind of service. But this isn't what these games deserve. Hell, even if they just had a filter, like Genesis or the other Nintendo consoles did, where it's technically a lower quality, but it's pixel perfect to the originals, the lower resolution version would be at least slightly better than what we've got. But no. Instead, this is arguably one of the worst ways they could have brought these games over. And unless they fix that, I don't think they're ever going to regain any sort of goodwill with their fans. Again, I think the expansion pack, in concept, is still a really good idea. The inclusion of DLC can be a real boon. Some of the Genesis games included are really cool, and as terrible as it is currently, the idea of bringing N64 games to the online service is an obvious choice. The problem is, they put it out way too soon. The big emulator wasn't up to snuff, there weren't enough titles for either emulator, and the only DLC included, while amazing, was for a game not everyone was interested in, especially in late 2021. If they improve the N64 emulator, like rip the current one out and completely replace it with a more faithful one, and beef up the games list, maybe this pack will be worth the price tag in the future. But for now, let's just say, buyer beware.